Welcome to Believe, the Conspiracy Theory Podcast. I'm Phil Green.
And I'm David Ferguson.
And we are two comedians presenting a podcast all about the world's craziest conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Unless
it just happens to be true.
Yeah, because in a lot of cases, you like to believe, don't you?
It's not that I like to believe. It's just I see things for what they truly are.
Yes, he thinks we're talking the truth. I think this is a load of bollocks. But that's the point of this. We're having a discussion. We're trying to get to the root of the truth, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Although today, I feel like it's going to be a real stretch for either of us to believe this one, but we will find out.
I am being challenged today.
Yeah. So in each episode, we bring on a fellow comedian, and that comedian picks a conspiracy theory they want to talk about. It might be a conspiracy theory they believe in. It might be a conspiracy theory they don't believe in, or it might just be a conspiracy theory they think is the most ridiculous thing they've ever heard. What we try to do is try to look at the facts. We try to look at the fiction.
Yes.
And we try to work out whether we can prove it or we can debunk it, or, to be honest, neither, because we've not done any of those so far.
No. I mean, we're just two comedians.
We're just two comedians. Sometimes we even struggle to do that. But we have found a lot of information from the internet, and we're going to share that with you and our guests, with all the information inside your big old Irish head.
Big old Irish head.
And we're going to try and work out what the hell's going on with this conspiracy.
Indeed.
Okay. Now, we also have social media channels, don't we?
We absolutely do have social media channels.
And what social media channels are we on, David?
Do you know, I'll tell you what social media channels we're on. We're on Instagram.
Yes.
We're on TikTok.
Yes.
And we're on YouTube.
Yes! That's the first time he's got it right. We are on Instagram and TikTok, on YouTube, and the handle is at BelieveConspiracyPod. Please go on. Please give us a like and a follow. If you do so, then obviously you get updates on when all of the new episodes are coming out. We also put exclusive videos on those as well. But also it gives you a chance to tell us what you think about the conspiracies that we've been covering.
Yes, we want to know what you think. We want some feedback. We want you to argue with us. We want you to tell us facts. We also want you to suggest new conspiracy theories.
We know there's loads out there that you guys want to talk about that we don't know about. There's so many little niche ones that we've discovered from doing this podcast that are absolutely fascinating, but we know there's going to be things that you want to talk about as well, so do message us. But like you said, we do want to know what you think. We want to know your opinion. If you disagree with everything we said in the studio, then tell us that. We want to know that. If you agree with everything we said, tell us that too. We love that, to be quite honest.
Yeah, we're comedians. We like affirmation.
Yeah, we really do, to be honest. I mean, we will have our feelings hurt, but it's fine. Tell us what you think. We want to know that. We will have episodes where we do read those comments out, won't we?
Yes, we will.
Yes. Okay. Now, I am on tour at the moment. I'm doing my show 4 Weddings and a Breakdown. We've done a few dates already. It's been going great. Thank you to everyone that's come so far. There's a few dates left. I'm going to Bristol, Brighton, Glasgow, Liverpool, Peterborough and Poole. If you go into the show notes of any of our episodes, you will find a link there, or you can go into philgreencomedy.com and you will find links to all the shows there as well. Now, we should give a big shout out to our tech today.
Yes, we should.
The wonderful Brian.
Way!
Brian is trying to keep us warm in our freezing fucking cold studio.
We are so cold.
This is the coldest day we've done it here. And it's, what month are we in? February.
It's February.
Yeah,
near the end of February.
Nearly March, and it's freezing. So, who is our guest today?
We have a real champion of the people today, human rights lawyer, a good egg. We have the wonderful comedian Sid Singh.
He is indeed a good egg, a fascinating comedian. Most comedians that we know that have another job don't have a proper job like this. This is a real job, right? This is
important.
Yeah, this is an important job. Arguably more important than comedy, if there's such a thing. Yes, Sid is indeed a human rights lawyer, but he is also a brilliant comedian. He won the Comedian's Choice Award last year at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. He also won another award for Best Show. He's been on Comic Relief. He's been on Channel 4. He gigs all over the world. We never know where he is from one minute to the next. It makes us think he may also be a spy. Yeah. Who knows? Yeah. But he is a human rights lawyer, and a couple of years ago he had a big court case, part of a big court case against Donald Trump about an immigration law, and they won that court case. And one of his most recent specials is all about that story, and it is a fascinating story. It's very funny as well. So if you do get a chance to check Sid out in person, please do. But if not, he will have a special out very soon, and you should check that out because it is such a fantastic show. It is. Now, what is the conspiracy theory that Sid has chosen?
Sid has chosen Paul McCartney is dead.
Paul McCartney is dead.
Dead.
Let's bring on Sid Singh!
Yeah!
Get out of the rabbit hole.
It's a fake. Every single bird in the sky is a robot.
It's fiction.
Doubt your government.
They're trying to brainwash you.
It's an urban legend.
Like, if they're actually spraying something in the sky.
No way.
A stream of absurdity.
It's a total fabrication.
Welcome to the podcast, Sid Singh!
Yay!
There he is. Fresh from Butlins, Cardiff. Listen, you're the most international comic we know. Like, you are constantly on the road, everywhere. Europe, America, here. Butlins, Cardiff is not where I thought you would be last night.
Well, first of all, please, sir, get it right.
Yeah.
It's not Butlins, Cardiff. It's or Cardiff Butlins. It's Minehead.
Oh, sorry.
Butlins, the night after I did Cardiff.
And how was Minehead Butlins?
Well, listen, anytime you can go from San Francisco to Los Angeles to Cardiff and Butlins, it was an interesting. There's no American equivalent to the Butlins. Like, there's no way to really fully explain to
It's
people.
a very British thing, the holiday
is.
camp, actually.
Yeah. Because it's
Organized activities.
Yeah.
you know when like whales get together.
Yeah.
And like pods meet other pods.
Yeah.
That's what a Butlins is.
Yeah.
Right? It's like multiple caravans joining forces to get drunk on a Sunday.
I think the way that we do it here is we go to the caravans and the caravans don't move.
Yes.
Whereas in the States, all the caravans go to
Right.
places, right? So it's the reverse.
And the weirdest part about, from what I understand, all of the Butlins is almost all of them take place near the beach without incorporating it in any way.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
What they do is they pen them in so they can't mix with the general public,
Yeah.
which is like a safety thing.
The entire time I was there, I was like, beyond this wall, there's a thing you actually want to see,
Oh, no.
but you never will. Yeah.
No, you don't give them hope. That's not a good thing.
It very much felt like that feeling where I'm in a cult, but
Yeah.
this is no one's first choice. This is the cult they fell into when they're the cult they wanted to get into. Everyone killed themselves or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, as a political comedian, because you're quite a political
Mm-hmm.
comedian, it doesn't feel like target demographic.
Oh, but that was what was so fun was I just do crowd work, and there are the most interesting thing about the Butlins that I didn't expect was how self-aware they were.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That
Very
they,
self-aware.
about themselves
Yeah.
and so any joke the other comics would do, the crowd would just often be like, well, obviously, that's who we are.
Yeah, you could do jokes about Butlins. You can do jokes about caravans. You can do jokes about anything. Then they love it. They absolutely love it. It's That's the other. It's a very British thing, the self-deprecating thing.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably the epitome of it in a place like that, because there's nothing more British than a holiday camp.
But also, like, for all the jokes we wanted to make fun of them, they were all in a good mood, having a good time. How are we
They've been drinking since 9 a.m. They're going to be in a good mood. Right?
Everything's scheduled. You know what's going to happen. You know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
It's all beautiful.
Yeah.
And some of the Butlins are really like modern, and other Butlins look like they're a time capsule from the 1950s.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love that. I love
love
that.
it.
The Butlins back home, Bangor, is actually one of my favorite places in the whole world. I have really happy memories of it.
That's a nice setting. That is a nice setting, because you are near the beach there.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like
but not at the beach.
yeah, again, not at the beach, near the beach.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can hear the seagulls.
Yeah, exactly.
We're just unaffected by them. That was the weirdest thing about this one, though, is that it felt very much like a throwback, but a throwback of a 90s arcade.
That's exactly the vibe. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
retro.
Like, even the bar is stocked with mostly 90s drinks. Like,
Yes,
I know you
Hooch.
didn't grow up here, but like we like Hooch, WKD Blue, like Foster's. They'll be like, you wouldn't walk into Wetherspoons and see those anymore, but you go to Butlins.
It definitely felt like if I ever showed up there, whatever like the UK equivalent of like a bag of quarters is, I would be the king of this place.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 10p pieces, probably.
Well, okay, and on a darker turn,
Yeah.
you know when you make a joke at a place and the place laughs a little too loud?
Yeah.
And now you're like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
So I got heckled when I was at the Butlins.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, have you had your CRV check yet?
Okay.
I guess because I have a brown man with a beard. And I didn't even know what a CRV check was.
CRV is working with kids, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a pedophile check,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And
That's not the vibe you give off.
well, apparently that's the vibe
Well,
I gave
yeah,
off
what
to
you're wearing.
one audience member.
Okay.
And I was like, why would I do that? Buddy, we're in the Butlins. There's at least 3 pedophiles in here right now. And they laughed with a uproariousness where you're like, did I undersell how many pedophiles there are?
I'm glad you had that quintessentially British experience.
Yes.
Well, how about this? If they disagree
Yeah.
with us,
Oh, yeah.
well, then we dare them to sponsor this podcast.
God
to
damn
prove
it. We will take your money.
Oh
Butlins.
my gosh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
We want sponsorship.
That's
We
absolutely
do.
fine.
We do.
Sid, conspiracy theories.
Yes.
Now, you are a very educated man.
Everyone says it.
Yeah.
You have a massive
how-
vocabulary.
Yes, you do. How do you feel about conspiracy theories when you hear a conspiracy? And also, having spent a lot of time in America, and you go back there very frequently, and America, really, conspiracy theories often start in the US, not necessarily the areas you go to specifically. And
No, yeah.
So I guess, how do you feel about them?
Well, in general, conspiracies to me have always been just our way of trying to explain the chaos of life, right? Is to be like, no, because if what you said was true, why do I feel so bad? There must be another reason. And so they have this weird thing of, I believe a conspiracy more by who is telling it to me.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? It was the same thing with like when the COVID vaccine came out, right?
Yep.
I got it fucking right away. But there were two kinds of people who would tell me not to trust the government.
Yeah.
And it would be white people
Yeah.
and minorities.
Yeah.
And they had the exact same conspiracy, but I only believed one of them. And I felt so guilty. Whenever a white person would tell me, like, you can't trust the government, I'm like, man, fuck you. You are the government, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But anytime a minority would say it, I'd be like, that's a good point.
Because you travel around to lots
Yeah.
of countries. Did you feel that far more in the US than you did anywhere else?
No. The weirdest thing is almost the randomness with which, like the COVID one, for example,
Oh, yeah?
I would hear. And I went through a very weird phase during COVID where, despite being vaccinated myself, I think I went on dates with 3 different anti-vaxxers.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And in my defense, all 3 of them, super hot. So no one ever mentions that part of it. But it turns out crazy doesn't mean not crazy hot. Yeah.
I mean, you want to have a look at your filters.
Yeah. And now turned them all to off based on what I've learned. Yeah.
It's that because it is interesting sometimes. Like we said it before in this podcast, is that there's sometimes like some people they're conspiracy theorists. Like you're like, yeah, it makes sense, you're a conspiracy theorist. And there's sometimes where you go on a date with somebody or you're friends with somebody at work or whatever it is, and then suddenly, having known them for a while, they come out with something. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
and it's such a shock to the system when you just think this is quite a straight-laced run of the,
Well, and I think that's what makes the COVID vaccine one so weird.
Yeah.
Is that I feel like we fought so hard to be like, please get vaccinated.
Yeah.
You fucking weirdos.
Yeah.
And they didn't. And now they're just amongst us.
yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no reason to check or ask them. And often they'll volunteer the information anyway. I will say this, though. In my defense for dating one of them, I did convince one to get vaccinated.
Oh, well.
And that felt like a superpower. Convincing a conspiracy theorist to forego their conspiracy?
Yeah. You never stop working for the people. Such a selfless guy.
And that's why I'm here to share
Yeah.
my tactic: physical violence. Wait, no, hold on, wait, that can't be it.
So
We're
glad you got that
comedians.
law degree.
We are not strong enough for physical violence. That's why we use comedy to defend ourselves. We
There's
all
a
got
Behind
beat up.
jokes. Exactly right. So, the conspiracy you've chosen, Sid, Paul McCartney is dead. Now, I'm going to level with you. When we first started doing this podcast, one of the reasons we started doing this podcast is because of this conspiracy.
Right.
So I mentioned this in my show that I did last year, and that was I'd kind of heard about this, but a guy I went on Stag Do with mentioned this one to me, and then I started looking into it. And Fergie's always been into conspiracy theories, and that's kind of how this snowballed. So it's kind of come from this one. So I'm very glad that you picked it.
Well, especially because, without giving anything away, in so many ways, it's the most harmless conspiracy
Yeah.
with the silliest implications.
Yeah. So, the Paul McCartney is dead conspiracy theory emerged in the late 1960s and gained significant traction among fans of the Beatles, particularly in the United States. The theory posits that Paul McCartney, one of the members of the Beatles, died in a car accident in 1966 and was subsequently replaced by a lookalike imposter. Proponents of the theory claim that Paul McCartney died in a car crash on November 9th, 1966 after leaving a recording session. Supposedly, he crashed his car and was decapitated. However, no evidence or credible reports support this claim, and Paul himself himself has addressed the rumours, confirming that he is still alive. Supporters of the theory believe that clues hinting at Paul's death were deliberately embedded in the Beatles' albums and artwork as a form of cryptic confession or tribute. For instance, the Abbey Road album cover is often cited as a primary piece of evidence. Some interpret the cover as a funeral procession. John Lennon is wearing all white, just like a priest. Ringo's all dressed in black, like a pallbearer. And George Harrison is bringing up the rear in a blue jean getup, the gravedigger of the group. And Paul, the supposedly deceased Beatle, is walking shoeless across the road, out of step with the others, theorists say, because he's dead.
Yeah. There's also the car in the background.
Yeah, there's the car in the background.
28F.
Yeah, exactly. 28F, which is the age. So it's, if he had lived, he would have been 28.
It would be the 28th year because he was 27.
27, that's right. Yeah.
Because you got to
Classic
nail it
year
down.
to die if you're
Classic year to
yeah,
die.
27. But it is true. The Abbey Road cover, because I actually didn't know much about, like, I've obviously seen it, we all know that cover, but I had never made that connection. I never really thought about the fact he doesn't have any shoes on. It is a bit weird he hasn't got shoes on.
Yep.
Is it?
Have you seen the streets of London in the 60s? Yes, it's weird.
Counterpoint, have you met a musician before?
This is true.
But why is he
I just thought he
only
was
one
bohemian.
with no shoes on?
Because he's the genius of the group.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I've just said who I prefer over John or Paul. Oh, didn't mean to do that.
Sid, are you a Beatles fan?
I am a Beatles fan.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not like a huge fan because I only got into them in college, I feel like.
Yeah.
So I was like so behind people who loved them.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're great. They're great.
Yeah.
The albums are great.
Can you see why this originated in the US rather than over here?
Yeah, because I feel like there is no way anyone in the UK would believe in anyone's competence enough to be like, yeah, they found a replacement and he was fine. That's my thing. There's so many funny implications about them replacing Paul.
Yeah.
The first, of course, being that other Beatles have since died and didn't get replaced. That to me is the funniest part about it.
But that was long after their heyday.
Yeah.
You know,
They were still a group at this stage. That was the point.
So if that's your counter, then let me ask you this: would someone who believes that Paul was replaced at the height of the Beatles?
Yeah.
Does he also believe that Michael Jackson was replaced and they couldn't find a black guy?
Well, the Michael Jackson thing. Michael Jackson's still alive. That's a big thing. He attended his own funeral.
There is a conspiracy, that does believe that. Yeah, that's true.
But when it comes to Paul McCartney being replaced in 1966, MI5 that said it would have destroyed the nation. And
Hang on, which nation?
The British nation, but also obviously the Beatles were worldwide by 1966. Yeah. So getting a replacement was essential. And can you imagine if Taylor Swift died now? I mean, people wouldn't be able to cope. I wouldn't be able to cope, and I'm not a Swiftie. So I can definitely see that happening.
But again, that's inherently funny because at some point John gets shot, and you're saying the same government officials are like, "We're kind of over it."
Yeah, but he was 40. But the Beatles were over then. He was 41. He was old news. Also,
he got shot in public. It was pretty difficult to replace him after that.
I don't know if you know this, but normally when you get into a car accident, it's also technically in public.
What's the lyrics from Eleanor Rigby or whatever part of the conspiracy theory is this is like 3 a.m. that he died. So they were able to cover it up.
There was a line in there about that.
Yeah. If you know this,
right in.
Right in. But yeah, they were able to cover it up. They were able to cover it up. My big thing is the Hey Jude was the next big song after 1966, which and I think that's the biggest hits the Beatles ever had. Is that correct?
It's definitely up there. Yeah,
it was a bloody great song, especially when Robbie.
I'm a Maxwell's Hammer guy.
Oh, really?
I don't know. Go on.
I like to think that's because Billy Shears, who is the named replacement for Paul McCartney, named. See, this is where it gets me. They actually know the name of the person that replaced him.
Yeah.
And they give him plastic surgery. He was also a genius. But,
because at that time, the Beatles obviously were the biggest band in the world.
Yes.
But at a time where music was not as accessible and as wide-reaching and as global as it is now. Yeah. So something like that happening to the biggest group in the world has a much greater impact as much more worldwide news than maybe it would be now. Because, Taylor Swift is huge, but if Taylor Swift died, it would be very sad. Yeah. We would have to stop the podcast and go into a period of mourning for 6 months.
Yes, we would. Yes.
But not everyone would.
Because they're bad people.
Yeah, they're bad people. But what I mean is there's so many artists, there's so many people at that level, right? But the Beatles at that time, like Elvis,
right.
That stratospheric...
Elvis, by the way, another guy who died and wasn't replaced.
Yeah, well...
Oh, no.
Is he
Elvis,
dead?
Elvis did not. I mean, I think he's dead now.
Yeah.
But we'll all seem Bubba Hope.
There is a conspiracy that Elvis didn't die in which year it was he died?
1976.
76. But he did die. He is dead, but he died before that. He died in, I think, the late 60s. They did replace him.
He's another replacement person.
Yeah, a bit like Paul, but we'll come to that on another.
And that's why he did all the movies in the 60s. Like, he didn't really record in the 60s. But the
Beatles did a lot of movies as well, didn't they?
Yeah, not in the same way that Elvis did. Like, they were really trying to make Elvis a movie star. I think Elvis could act, but
he did make some absolute.
Oh my gosh! But he also brought Anne Margaret to the world's attention, and I love Anne Margaret. Do you know who I'm talking about? Okay, right. Anne Margaret, the grooviest chick you've ever met. She's gorgeous. I love her, and I'm totally gay. But anyway, hi.
Wait, so is Anne Margaret Elvis's 14-year-old wife, or
no?
is she
That's
someone else?
Priscilla.
Okay.
The movie's really good, but no. Anne Margaret is Viva Las Vegas. She's the girl that danced with him, Viva Las Vegas. And I'm not looking at Elvis, and I'm gay. And she's so hot. Like, she is hot.
Okay.
Anyway, and she's just wonderful. Anne Margaret. She's still alive. She's wonderful.
Now, when she dies, will you try to replace her?
Yeah.
You can never replace Anne Margaret. But also...
But you can replace Paul McCartney?
Yes, at the height of the Beatles. Yes, absolutely.
I also... the other implication
they had the recordings of his voice and stuff. They were able to train this guy up.
My theory also is that inherently...
Billy Shears.
Billy Shears... to me, it's also Paul McCartney, not that good of a bassist if he's that easily replaced.
Also, not that good of a singer.
Yeah.
Well, when you consider, like, Cilla Black was also launched.
Yeah.
But
that was more of a novelty thing.
But Cilla, like she was the fifth Beatle. As much as I can't stand her, she was the fifth Beatle.
Yeah. Who?
You don't see? It's because you're American. You don't know Cilla Black.
Yeah, we don't have time for this.
We really don't. Cilla Black.
A lot of painful watching after this episode.
Now, which one's Stuart Sutcliffe?
He was at the beginning. Sutcliffe was at the beginning.
Yeah.
He left at 61. He was.
He left before
he was an early member of the Beatles. For anyone who doesn't know,
Backbeat's a really good movie that's pretty accurate that you can watch.
I mean, they did replace him, but they overtly replaced him.
Yeah, like there's a couple of people who have the title of fifth Beatle, but Cilla Black is one of them.
Okay.
And she basically covered every Dionne Warwick song, so Dionne Warwick didn't have the hits over here.
Right.
Like Alfie and Anyone Who Had a Heart. I have to say I prefer the Cilla Black Everyone Who Had a Heart. Anyway, but even though Dionne Warwick, legend.
She is a legend.
Beautiful singer.
So, backmasking and the origins of the theory. So, backward masking. Do you know about backward masking?
No.
Okay, let me tell you about it. We have briefly talked about this in another episode. So,
we can stop and we can watch that now.
Yeah.
No, kidding.
Backward masking, a technique where hidden messages are allegedly embedded in songs when played backwards. However, these interpretations are highly subjective and likely the result of pareidolia. Have I pronounced that right?
Pareidolia.
Yeah. The tendency to perceive meaningful patterns where none exist. So 55 years ago, a Detroit DJ accidentally started the Paul is Dead craze. It blew up on October 12th, 1969, when Russ Gibb was hosting his show on WKNR. A mysterious caller told him to put on the Beatles' White Album and spin the number nine intro on Dead Man. From Revolution 9 backwards. When Gibb tried it on air, he heard the words, "Turn me on, Dead Man." The clues kept coming. At the end of Strawberry Fields Forever, John says, "I buried Paul." The rumour spread like wildfire as fans searched for their Beatle album for clues. 50 years later, Paul is Dead remains the weirdest and most famous of all music conspiracy theories. It became a permanent part of the Beatles' lore, a totally fan-generated phenomenon that the band could only watch with amusement and or exasperation. As Paul told Rolling Stone in 1974, someone from the office ran me up and said, "Look, Paul, you're dead." And I said, "Oh, I don't agree with that." But then he would say that, wouldn't he?
Of course he would say, because the MI5 trained him to say that.
If he's even Paul.
No, well, Billy would have had to say it, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
So, again, now, do we think that they would have replaced any of the Beatles. Or if Ringo died, it would have been like, hey guys, great news.
I kind of feel like if
Ringo
died,
and George, okay.
Yeah.
As much as I love My Sweet Lord and I love Ringo's solo album, his first solo album.
Yeah.
It's so good, but no.
I do love Ringo. I think he's such an enigmatic personality. But at the time, I think they would have just gone, we'll just get another drummer.
What I'm saying, do the inventors of this conspiracy find Ringo Starr to be aggressively alive?
Well, he married Barbara Bach, so like that's a reason to live.
Well,
my God, have you seen her? Oh,
I'm more of an Anne
I am
Margaret
gay.
fan.
I swear. Like I just love women. It's like
Is he
Barbara
still
Bach.
married to her?
Yeah.
he?
Very, very happily
That's
married.
impressive.
Yeah. Well, you'd do anything to keep Barbara Bach. Have you seen The Spy Who
Yeah.
Loved Me? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Again, I'm gay. Sorry. But sorry, I don't normally.
Come back for the bonus episode on Patreon. We're going to have David just rate tits.
Oh my God, let's do that.
Gay man rates tits. Oh, for a mostly audio medium, it's not great.
Yeah, just mostly come those tits.
Oh, but a good
Just telling
good
you about
set.
tits.
A good set is wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but so are you aware of, I know maybe not the term backmasking, but have you heard about people playing songs backwards? Okay.
Dark Side of the Moon, right? That's the most famous example.
Yeah. There's quite a few, but it was a craze mostly in the 80s, I think. But
really got
it really got big in the 80s. But we were saying this in another episode is that so this DJ, obviously somebody's called into this radio station. They've said play this backwards. He's done it. But the guy that's called in has obviously planted the seed of this is what you'll hear. So you're then listening out for that, right? So you've subjectively planted, well, not even subjectively, you planted that seed in someone's head. So then you're listening out for it. And anything you play backwards, not anything, but a lot of, if you played hundreds and hundreds of songs backwards, you're gonna hear stuff, right? You're gonna make out lyrics that aren't really there, right?
Of course.
You don't think so?
well.
I think it has sometimes been done intentionally. I think there are some rock bands in the 80s that did do it off the back of this, but I don't think at this time the Beatles were necessarily trying to do this.
No. But I love that "Turn Me On Dead Man." I think that's what it says. Like it does. It does sound like it. And I believe that Billy did replace Paul. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, but if this is true, again, another implication that I think is very fun is that would mean that the Swedes are probably the most likely people to have replaced Paul, right?
Swedes.
Oh yeah, because let's get into it, right?
Yeah.
Who has the most to gain from inventing Spotify? The people who are trying to cover up the ability to play records backwards.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
You can't play a record backwards if it's a fucking Spotify song.
You can't.
But if you download it, I've got an app that plays the songs backwards. I literally got it on my phone right now because I love that shit. So I prefer to download. I don't use streaming. I use iTunes and download. I'm a Luddite. Sorry.
Okay, so the crash and cover up.
He has to put up with a lot.
Okay, so here's how the rumor went, as summed up by Nicholas Schaffner in The Beatles Forever. Okay, Paul died on November 9th, 1966. He drove away from Abbey Road late the night before. Then his car skidded off an icy road and crashed into a pole. He was officially pronounced dead, OPD, on Wednesday morning at 5 o'clock, which is why George points to that line on Sgt. Pepper's sleeve while Paul wears an OPD patch. But the other Beatles decided to hush up the news, so Wednesday morning papers didn't come. Somehow, they kept Paul's death a secret, replaced him with a lookalike, then dropped sly hints about the cover-up scam. The imposter wrote Hey Jude and Blackbird, which is what you were talking about earlier, which means he's the guy who probably should have had Paul's job in the first place. Fans began whispering about all the clues on the just-released Abbey Road. If you look at that cover, Paul's barefoot, out of step with the others, holding a cigarette in his right hand, and he was left-handed. And as you mentioned earlier, the Volkswagen in the background with the 28 if license plate. That is how old Paul would have been if he was still alive. So they were suggesting he died at 27, as have many other famous people since. Yet another example that the theories point to is the significance of the black walrus that appears on the cover of the 1967 album Magical Mystery Tour. According to these theories, the black walrus The black walrus symbolises death in certain cultures, and McCartney was undoubtedly in that animal costume. That's what they think. Fans eagerly believed walrus is Greek for corpse. It isn't. It's actually Scandinavian. Or that goo 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 is what Humpty Dumpty says in James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake before his fatal fall off the wall. this is getting quite tenuous. I have
But
to
it's
say.
very literary.
It's very literary, yeah. But I mean, you've really got to like. You could find that in anything. Surely, you could go through a whole story. And
How
find-
many times have you been a walrus?
Admittedly, not that many. So, I Am the Walrus ends with a live BBC broadcast of a fatal scene from Shakespeare's King Lear with Oswald groaning, "Oh, untimely death," and that is true because John taped it off the radio and he liked how it sounded, so he put it on the song. And in Glass Onion, John sings, "Here's another clue for you: the walrus was Paul." So he actually said the walrus was Paul. I mean, but all of this happened like years afterwards. This is all conspiracy theories, like digging into the songs, trying to find meaning, trying to find reason behind it, trying to find ways of justifying this conspiracy theory, right?
It's also just funny to think about like the alternative reasons for these things. It's like, the other reason John said that line, probably because he was doing a lot of heroin.
Yeah.
it's an equally compelling, I would say, reason to say nonsense.
Yeah. I mean, that is
Or
true.
tell the truth because your inhibitions are down.
Either way, this podcast is sponsored by heroin. Butlins, the world's best place to get heroin.
Oh, we're getting sued.
Heroin
Oh, we're
and
getting
hooch.
sued.
Yeah. And kids.
Excellent. Glad we're now actively promoting pedophilia. I mean, when we talked about the craziness of conspiracy theories, this is, I would say, the epitome of crazy. Like, I can understand why people believe someone else shot JFK. I can sort of understand why people believe that man didn't land on the moon. But this is really clutching at straws, surely.
Because he's still there. Like we can see. I've met Paul McCartney. So
Which one?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's
Have
why.
you?
That's why I believe it was Billy Shears. No, I met Paul McCartney the day that he announced that he was going to marry Heather Mills, and I was coming out of a bookstore and I bumped into him, and like literally bumped into and then when you realize you've bumped into Paul McCartney, and my mouth went completely dry, and I went, "It's okay, I can't do a Liverpool accent." And there was a girl, a woman. We both locked eyes and went, "Paul McCartney," and he walked off. And that was the day he announced that he was getting married to Heather Mills McCartney.
And again, that girl that you locked eyes with, that's the third girl you found gorgeous at the start of the podcast. You were like, "Oh my God, it's Paul McCartney. Get out of the way. I'm trying to jerk off towards that woman right now, Paul, and you're ruining it."
Yeah, I'm only gay for my comedy stand.
It's just a ruse.
It's just a ruse.
Yeah.
Who wants another straight white guy? Am I right, fellas?
Yeah. Sid's actually for both. This whole like international comic thing is just a ruse.
Yeah.
And that's fake tan, isn't it?
Yeah.
Listen, I've been to Cardiff. I get it.
Blended in seamlessly. Okay, so where was Paul supposed to be at the time? Okay, so when the rumour blew up, Paul was neither dead nor a walrus. He was in seclusion on his Scottish farm with Linda, Heather, and their 6-week-old daughter, Mary, known to the world as the infant cradled in his leather jacket in Linda's most famous photo. With a newborn baby to care for, he was in no mood to indulge in the media frenzy. As he told Rolling Stone, they said, "Look, what are you going to do about it? It's a big thing in America. You're dead." So he said, "Leave it. Just let them say it. It'll probably be the best publicity we've ever had, and I won't have to do a thing except stay alive. So I've managed to stay alive through it." I mean, in fairness, that is true.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about it 50 years later.
Yeah.
So it is free publicity.
Yeah, but-
which I wonder if there's a conspiracy about the conspiracy. You know, when we talked about this before, where you
Right.
start a conspiracy. It's because it's kind of free marketing, right?
This to me makes way more sense than just a conspiracy itself.
Yeah, I thought this was more your bag. Like,
I love the idea of them being like, "What if Paul was dead? Would that keep it going?"
yeah.
And that's why the full quote, you forgot the last sentence of that quote, which he says, "It'll really help when I start my real band, Wings."
And they do have a song, "Live and Let Die."
They did. Yeah.
But also, that's, again, my favorite ancillary moment of this conspiracy is that this Billy guy eventually gets so famous as Paul too that he starts Wings. And the agents were like, "Come on, man. Like, what if you all got back together?" Like, "I don't need that. I have Wings money now."
Yeah, I mean, he did do pretty well.
He did pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think the frog chorus is the best thing Paul McCartney's ever done.
I do love the frog chorus.
Seen the frog
though.
chorus?
No, I haven't.
Okay, you need to see the. I think it was 80s. I think.
Yeah, it was the 80s, about 85.
It's an animated. It's an animated musical number that is just frogs singing.
It's really charming.
It's genuinely great, and it's beautiful to look at. Like it's a stunning video. It's fucking weird, but it's great.
Because the thing that does lead to this conspiracy, I think, having the legs that it has to some extent, is that when you were to like stereotype all four Beatles, Paul is definitely the one who is the most like, let's keep this money train going.
Yeah, he's really motivated.
He's the one that makes the most sense as like the one that would be likely to be like if.
But if he's dead, then they're replacing him with somebody. Right?
I'm thinking he's the most likely to be the studio plant who's like, yeah, guys, let's keep going. I'm not a snitch. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if anything, he's the guy. If this conspiracy is fake, I would say Paul is the one who is the most likely to start this conspiracy for a different Beatle.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to keep the money train going.
Okay. So, therefore, if one of the others had died, this would be a more likely conspiracy.
I'd be more willing to believe this conspiracy if George died.
Yeah.
And Paul was like, we got to replace him, guys. We can't stop.
But we just don't think anyone would care enough if George died.
Yeah.
People love George. People love Ringo.
I do love George. I love George.
Well, he's definitely the most underrated Beatle.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I like all the Beatles, like all their solo stuff. Obviously, Lennon and McCartney are the ones that are highlight. But Ringo's my favorite solo album. The first Ringo solo album is just so good. It's just great. But
Is
he
it
just
as
didn't have the
good as his voicing the Fat Controller in Thomas the Tank.
Nothing can surpass that. But like,
You know about this?
Yes.
Yeah.
well, because he voiced it in the States as well. They didn't redub it. He kept.
Did
kept
he?
It. Yeah. It was.
Did they redub everything else?
They're pretty much.
But they didn't.
Didn't redub.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, because like he was a draw. I want to get back to the Life magazine cover.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So it's a lovely picture of him with his two kids. And
Yes.
and Linda McCartney, who died far too young, and
Again, not replaced.
and not replaced.
Not replaced.
It
Well,
replaced-
I mean, in fairness, he replaced her. But we never replaced her.
We never replaced
and neither
her.
did vegetarians.
No.
Anyway.
And again, we're up to 4 women. David Gordon.
But that magazine cover, there's an advert for a Mercedes on the back of it. Literally the other side of the page. And if you hold it up to the light, it makes a great image of a car driving through Paul. Like it's a really stunning image. And obviously got decapitated and everything. You see, it's like that was deliberate. Like it's so perfect, and I just find it really, really interesting. Like you can see it online. Life cover see-through or life cover backmask.
Yeah.
But see, this is the other reason I don't believe in this conspiracy theory. Is we've all been in show business for a minute at a time. You know, when horrible things happen, there are a lot of open secrets out there. There's no hints. Right? The closest thing to a hint is a comic getting drunk and telling you
Yeah.
word for word.
Yeah.
There's not like, there were no magazine covers that were like, hey, if you put the light, it's actually Russell Brand next to a crying woman. You know what I mean?
We went to a show in Edinburgh, and it was clearly stated that thing that we're not going to mention.
Yeah, very overtly. But in a room where there's no cameras,
Right.
Yeah, where it's not getting out into print. That's kind of, and that's why people go to comedy, right? That's because they want to hear things that aren't being said outside of that room. But you're right. Is that no one's it would be
No one's subtle.
It would be the front page of every goddamn publication in the world.
Yeah. It's just not. I mean, maybe it's just a comedy thing, but there's no comedy album that if you play backward, it's like, yeah, Russell did that shit.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Although it would be funny if somebody did do that.
I'm sure Daniel Sloss has done that.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like, Sid, that's something you're capable of doing.
Oh, yeah.
I don't mean like in a negative way. I mean you're clever enough to think through how you could write something that would make sense backwards as it would forwards.
I just say it. You know what I mean? I just tell the crowd, and then I'd say the word allegedly
I didn't
at
say
the
you
end
could be
of it.
bothered to do it. So John Lennon calling the same Detroit radio station on, this is the one that broke the
news, revealed
broke the news, revealed it, however you want to talk about it. John Lennon calling the same Detroit radio station on October 26th fumed. It's the most stupid rumor I've ever heard. It sounds like the same guy who blew up my Christ remark. which we all know about that one. John denied any coded messages. I don't know what Beatles records sound like backwards. I never play them backwards. Or that he was the preacher at the funeral. They said I was wearing a white religious suit. I mean, did Humphrey Bogart wear a white religious suit? All I've got is a nice Humphrey Bogart suit. John's peak was understandable. He was releasing his solo single, Cold Turkey, the record where he finally ditched the Lennon-McCartney credit, and his wedding album with Yoko. The last thing on earth he wanted to do was talk about Paul's bare feet. I mean, he was quite pissed off about it, genuinely, wasn't he? Because it was taking away attention from and they weren't getting on, were they?
No, not by the end of the Beatles. They hated each other.
Yeah.
Well, but again, so I think we romanticize the end because it's these two great songwriters. But in reality, what was really happening was one guy really wanted to make money, and one guy really wanted to do heroin. And the more you hear it from that lens, even that entire interview of just John being like, "No, we weren't doing that. We were busy injecting ourselves with the best thing on earth."
I mean, that is true. And one guy just wanted to run away with a girl. A tale as old as time.
It's beautiful.
It is a beautiful thing.
Well, I think that unfortunately, one guy not only did not want to run away with a girl, he wanted to bring her everywhere.
Yeah, he did. I think, I mean, I can understand why he was getting annoyed about this, but this, I mean, in fairness, that probably did add to his anger with Paul McCartney, even though this had absolutely nothing to do with Paul McCartney. So it probably didn't help the situation, I imagine, between the two of them.
And I bet he was wishing it was true.
Yeah.
Well, no, I bet I think Lennon was the kind of guy with the kind of ego that he was also annoyed that there was no like version that was him instead of Paul.
Oh, there was eventually.
Was there?
He got shot.
No, I mean, but again,
there's a song about it, Moonlight Shadow.
It, he wasn't replaced.
No,
Yeah.
but Yoko Ono, at least she was alive.
Still is. So who replaced Paul McCartney? So we mentioned this already, but conspiracy theories claim that John Lennon, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr worried about how his death might impact the Beatles' huge commercial success. So they covered up his death by replacing him with a lookalike named Billy Shears, who looked, acted, and even sounded the part. Extreme theories have pointed to discrepancies in older photos of Paul and more recent photos claiming that the details like chin shape or placement of his ears are dead giveaways. Falls, which is fake Pauls. See what they've done. Head size and shape are also supposedly different from McCartney's. Some theories even go as far as to say Shears was an orphan who had once won a McCartney lookalike competition. I don't know why it matters he's an orphan particularly. And so the story goes, the Beatles were able to continue on with their hit-making career undisturbed, with their big secret well hidden from the world.
So where is Billy Shears now?
In Paul McCartney's house.
Yeah.
Right, that seems to be the
Taking Paul McCartney's money.
Yeah, I mean, like that's definitely what the conspiracy theorists believe. Hey, who knows? But I would argue if Paul really wanted to dispel this, he would just be like, "Hey, here's Billy over here."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Billy had like Glastonbury 2 years ago. Yeah.
Billy Shears.
Billy can't sing anymore.
Could he ever sing?
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
Well, one of the sea changes is like Paul McCartney was dating Jane Asher, and they were a really hot couple for a long time. Jane Asher of cake fame, and as in she makes cake, she's into baking. She was an actor as well. She's in a really good movie called Dance of the Red Mask of the Red Death. Sorry, I got that completely wrong. It's a really good film, one of my favorite movies. Vincent Price is so hammy in it. Oh, so good. I love it. But they suddenly split up, and they didn't split up badly. It was over. And then Linda McCartney came on the scene. That's because Paul died and Jake took over. So we should get Jane Asher on here and ask her, what happened to Paul.
Oh yeah, she'd be up for that.
Oh, totally. I love cake. Jane Asher, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Phil, should one of us talk about how hot a guy is? Just
I feel like that. Yeah, that's what's missing from this podcast. Yeah.
I'll tell you who's hot. Not the second Paul, am I right?
Who's the hottest Beatle?
Oh, it was Paul. It was Paul.
It was Paul.
It was Paul. Yeah.
Back in the day, it was Paul.
Yeah, he was dreamy.
I'd say now. Well, there's only two of them now. But
well, I'd say if you dig up George, it's pretty close.
I don't think George was a bad-looking dude.
No, but Paul was dreamy. That's.
But they weren't sort of like. I mean, he was of the four of them, but they weren't like particularly pin-up boys. You know what I mean? Like Elvis was like a really exceptionally good-looking dude back.
And
in
he
the
wore
day.
mascara.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the reasons why Elvis is so attractive looking, because he wore mascara. It's such a weird thing.
But he is a good-looking guy.
He is a good-looking guy, yeah. But Paul was considered absolutely dreamy. Like Beatlemania was him, and then the other Beatles. Even though the music was loved, because the music's great. You get they could have been radio stars, but the fact that they were just so boyish and handsome. I mean, the Beatles did everything before any of them were 30.
Yeah.
Let that sink in, gentlemen. Like they created that before they were 30. I feel like I haven't started in life yet, and I am older than 30.
Yeah. I feel like they were very much the sugar babes of their time. Like that level of... And in fairness, sugar babes have replaced themselves many times.
Absolutely. See, it's a done thing now. It's a done thing now.
Okay, so Beatles guilt. According to McCartney truthers, Lennon, Harrison, and Starr began to feel guilty about the cover-up, so they began leaving clues that hinted at McCartney's untimely death via their album covers and even in their songs themselves. The cover for Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, released in 1967, is supposedly a big clue, with theorists asserting that the image of a whole cadre of the band's heroes is not just a gathering, but a funeral. They point to the freshly dug earth in the foreground, the younger Beatle all dressed in black, and a patch of yellow flowers prominently displayed in the front. Could it be a nod to the left-handed bassist? Fans who believed in the theory started looking at hints in the band's songs as well, and found quite a few eerie coincidences. Perhaps one of the best known is their 1968 track Revolution 9, which, if played backwards, has one part that sounds like a violent car crash and a voice that can be heard saying, "He hit a pole, better get him to see a surgeon." Fucking hell.
Those surgeons who reattach heads to necks?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The supposed audio clues didn't stop there. Play "I'm So Tired" backwards and you get a recorded phrase that sounds kind of like, "Paul is dead, miss him, miss him, miss him." Slow down "Strawberry Fields Forever" and you could see John saying, "I buried Paul." In interviews, however, Lennon explained that the phrase was actually cranberry sauce. Cranberry sauce.
Like it was "I buried Paul."
Yeah.
It was "I buried."
They don't sound close enough.
Cranberry sauce, "I buried Paul."
The justification I would use is he was on heroin. So I imagine he could say cranberry sauce and make it sound like anything. His mouth was moving without a lot of sound coming out.
Well, like they Beatles were such. Well, they were always in drugs, like when they were in Berlin, like they were doing uppers and went crazy.
I mean, Sid's whole explanation for all of this is they were on a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's why I long for a Taylor Swift album where someone gives her heroin. Like, come on, can you imagine how great that album would be?
Imagine Taylor Swift on heroin.
Oh my God! Like, I don't want her to Whitney, but I want her to do drugs.
Also, I don't understand the motive. Why would the Beatles, if they've covered this up, why would they put clues in their songs that they covered up?
It wouldn't happen.
It wouldn't.
No, it'd be living life
sense.
dangerously. It's exciting.
Yeah, but but why would you do that? If you're trying to present an image of the band still being the same four people that started it, why would you possibly give any fans any kind of clue that one of them isn't the original member?
And why didn't they have clues about other stuff?
Yeah.
Why? Why? They should. I want the Beatles conspiracy of and here's all the other things they said if you played the album backwards. Reagan was a bad actor.
Reagan was a bad actor. Even Betty Davis said that. Sorry.
He played the president fairly convincingly, I think.
Oh, did he though? After he got shot, it was definitely George
that's
W.
true.
It was George Senior. I think was the president. Sorry.
It's much weirder than that, but yes. Towards the end of Reagan's presidency, basically it was definitely a cabinet of people doing most of the work. They would say that when he would go into an interview with Reagan to ask him the president questions, Nancy Reagan would be there. Instead, you would ask her questions. She would go away, come back an hour later with Reagan, and he would answer what were clearly prepared remarks unless he got them wrong.
Yeah.
And then she would tap his knee and go, "What the president meant to say was..."
Who's doing that for Biden at the moment?
I don't think
me.
I don't think you're doing that great a job if that's the case.
I mean, Biden, God love him.
By 1970, few people seriously believed that Paul McCartney was dead, but for some reason the story remained hugely popular long after it was debunked. It became a tireless ritual of fan culture to check out the clues for yourself. Countless pallbearers, Yeah, that's what they're called. Over the years, have held up a butter knife to the back of the Abbey Road cover so we could see the reflection of a human skull. It is actually there to the right of the S. Or put on side 2 of the White Album, drop the needle on the vinyl right after I'm So Tired and spun it backwards to hear the words, Paul is dead, man, miss him, miss him. The cover of the first solo album was a bowl of cherries in the Life is Just, as in a bowl of cherries, but the bowl was empty, which could only mean Paul was starting the world's first posthumous solo career. And as we know, John's saying cranberry sauce, not I buried Paul, and OPD said it was actually OPP, a gift from the Ontario Provincial Police, but that didn't spoil anyone's fun. As Schaefer wrote, it's a genuine folktale of mass communications era. The story outlived Russ Gibb, who died in April 2019. He was the original DJ that started this. It also outlasted the band, as it turns out. Something major really did happen to the Beatles on November the 9th, 1966. It was the day that John met Yoko.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
So
That's the day they all died.
it's the day they all died. It's the day the band died.
I don't mean to diss Yoko Ono. She's a great artist and a fantastic singer.
And that is girl number 6.
So what do we think? Do we think that Paul McCartney died and was replaced by Billy Shears and there's been some mass cover-up?
I want justice for Billy Shears, but do you want to know something? Like, I'm compelled by the heroin argument.
It's the most compelling argument. Heroin explains most of the world's crazy people being crazy.
And LSD and mushrooms and all the stuff that they did.
Do you believe this?
I want to believe it, but no.
No. Sid?
Paul.
Again, if it was possible to replace Paul McCartney and they just stood by and let Michael Jackson do what he did instead, there's no way.
I agree with both of you. It's one of the most ridiculous conspiracy theories I think that's ever lived. But we have to say, it is fun.
Oh, yeah.
It is fun that this is out there, and I never want it to die, like Paul.
This is a top 5 fun conspiracy theory.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fortunately, Paul McCartney's still around. He's been bemused by the whole thing, even calling one album Paul is Live. That's quite clever. And it was more than just a rock star rumor. It inspired ordinary fans to turn detectives and permanently changed the way people consume music. Paul is dead, walked, so Tupac is alive, Stevie Wonder can see, and there are 12 different Avril Lavignes could run. Every time Taylor Swift hints, you should count the palm trees in her new video. She's tapping into the 28IF legacy. She buried John Mayer. The whole phenomenon, however, accidentally shows how crazy and devoted fan love can get. And that's really why the Paul is Dead legend lives on. It's a tribute to all the life in the music. Long live the Beatles and long live Paul.
Long live the Beatles. Long live Paul.
Yeah, sure.
There you go.
I'm more of a Led Zeppelin guy. Is it time to-
Oh, they're great too.
Yeah. There's a
That's-
Led Zeppelin track, I think, if you play backwards.
Oh,
some
there's
message in
loads.
that.
There's loads. So Led Zeppelin are the reason that there's Loch Ness Monster.
And that's a different episode.
That's a different
There's no
episode.
way we get into that now. So, Sid, would you like to look into this camera and tell people where they can find you, what you're doing, everything about you?
I'll be honest. I just came back from a 4-month tour.
He has nothing to promote.
So I have very little to promote. In the middle of April at some point, I'm going to release my first comedy special.
Oh, really?
Why? Because it's a long story.
On YouTube?
Yeah, it'll be on YouTube.
I cannot wait to see that. I saw the show live in Edinburgh last year, and it was such a great show.
Is
It
this last
will be
year's-
a different show from that one.
So what was the show that I saw that
You
I'm talking
saw
about?
The sequel to the show that I'm going to release.
Okay. So this is the show that I didn't see. Oh, that's very
Hang on,
exciting.
This is the show about you taking on Donald Trump, right? In court, is that the one?
Yes. I mean, they all are, but this is the,
Yeah. It's a great show. I have seen that show.
He's very funny.
And he's very funny. It is one of the most interesting stories you will ever see on stage, and very funny.
But if you're like, I wish I could listen to Sid and it wouldn't be political. Well, for free on Spotify, you can listen to my first album, Amazing Probably.
I did not know about this.
Oh, yeah. It's been hailed as, oh, no, does this guy have low self-esteem? So that's...
We're comedians. We all have low self-esteem. Come on.
Or you can catch Sid at Butlins in Minehead.
also fair.
Any of those options. There you go. Okay.
Wait to see your album.
Sid, would you like a Beatles joke to end the podcast?
Absolutely.
Of course you would. What did the Beatles say when they discovered a new insect? Let it be.
These
That's the end of the podcast.
Bye!
Please like and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. The more lovely subscribers we get, the more episodes we'll make. And follow us on Instagram and TikTok for regular updates and exclusive videos at Believe Conspiracy Pod. We love you. Bye!